Hey folks, I'm afraid that the feminists in my audience are about to feel incredibly dumb about a few things because, by Jove, I found him, the man who cracked the code. See, I've always known it to be an unambiguous fact that men are simply more moral, rational, calm, collected, and knowledgeable than women, but I've never actually had any evidence to back that belief up. You know, it's just always been true in my feelings, right? But thank the gods, I've finally found a person who I can give money to in exchange for validating my belief that the real problem with society isn't all of the social and economic inequality, our failure to address unprecedented technological advancement, or the ubiquitous presence of mind-numbing short-form propaganda on social media. It was women the whole time. So easy. Right there in front of us if you really think about it. But who is this man who wants us to give him money, you might be wondering. Please allow me to introduce you to Hayden McDougall before promptly apologizing for introducing you to Hayden McDougall. Now, Hayden goes by multiple monikers online. He's a self-described meme smith, and the sort of guy who likes to publicly admit that he hasn't showered in 4 days. Now, I could beat around the bush here and avoid telling you exactly what kind of person Hayden is in the hopes of extending this video further and giving the impression that I take this talentless slime intellectually seriously. But that wouldn't be very honest of me. Hayden is what one might call a groyper, which, if you are blissfully unfamiliar with that term, is essentially political shorthand for neo-Nazi with unconventional opinions on the age of consent. He's the sort of guy who captions his videos "Jesse presses Jewish atheist" and posts clips defending his belief in the quote-unquote Jewish question, which is actually somewhat convenient for me because it means all bets are off. Unlike many of the people we cover on this channel, who I'd largely categorize as shitty people, Hayden has voluntarily foregone his personhood in favor of subservience to a fascist cult. Which raises the question, why are we even talking about this guy in the first place? To be honest, when I first became aware of him, I didn't expect the rabbit hole to go quite this deep. I thought that I had just stumbled upon some generic misogyny account that would maybe be worth dunking on at some point in the future, but ultimately little more than that. But then I did something that no white supremacist has ever dreamed of doing. I looked a little bit deeper and found that the life this guy leads is significantly worse than I even fully realized at the outset. And so, I would like to present to you a cautionary tale. If you are the sort of person who finds yourself enjoying the content of someone like Hayden, allow me to show you where that road ends, by first focusing on a more recent venture of his, the Instagram account Woman Propaganda, where he describes himself as a 5'7" high-value alpha male who debunks, important word there, debunks viral feminist propaganda. Immediately, this bio makes it hard to take anything he says sincerely, even if you're not aware of all of the fascist stuff. You might expect me, for instance, to make fun of the fact that he describes himself as a high-value alpha male, because objectively, that's an incredibly funny and embarrassing way to describe yourself. But the problem with guys like this is that nothing they say is true or sincere until you agree with them. I'm sure we've all seen the Schrodinger's asshole post, the kind of guy who retroactively decides whether or not he was joking based on people's reactions, and I think it's safe to say this is just another example of that. That said, I'm going to take the claim that he considers himself a debunker of feminist propaganda as sincere for reasons that will become clear in a minute. I think one can fairly characterize some of the sorts of videos that I do on this channel as debunkings, at least sometimes. I don't really think that this video is a debunking exactly, but it's not a foreign concept to me. The deciding factor, in my opinion, is whether or not I attempt to make an argument that provides an alternative perspective to my subjects or counters their facts. With that in mind, let's take a look at a couple of Hayden's debunks. In fact, I'm so confident you're not going to find a lick of this convincing, I'm going to play you the entire video. And yes, his voice sounds exactly like you think it does.
Wait a second, wait.
When you realize only 4 to 6% of airline pilots and 8% of military pilots are women. I agree with her. That is way too much. It should be 0 fucking percent. Bro, if I get on a plane and I see my pilot is female, I'm like praying, "Dear Lord Jesus, have mercy on me. If I die today, please don't send me to hell." Like, bro, like 0% of pilots should be women. There's plenty of capable men that can do the job, and we're handing out the job to women for what? So that we're not sexist? Fuck you. Let's be sexist and let's make the world safe again. You fucking retarded bitch!
It does warm my heart just a little to know that every conservative who comments on my admittedly quite shrill voice is unknowingly inflicting devastating friendly fire, the likes of which hasn't been seen since they murked Stonewall Jackson. But here's the thing. If I were a sincere believer in this man's ideology, attempting to argue that women are bad at airplane, I would make an attempt to give a reason for believing what I do. I'd cite some of the evidence behind my position that definitely exists, by the way. The fundamental problem here is that no such evidence exists, and Hayden obviously knows that. I mean, we know he knows that because he simultaneously claims that women are dangerous enough pilots that he needs to get right with God, while also willingly flying on planes with women pilots. He knows that he has nothing of value to offer society, so he has instead pivoted to appealing to the crowd of people who think only in affirmations. The people viewing this video don't have well-reasoned misogynistic beliefs either, because no such beliefs exist. But they do have a vague dislike towards women, and will happily gobble up any slop reaffirming that disdain, regardless of how fake the outrage is. Take another example, and once again, we'll play the whole thing, because if you're stupid enough to fall for this, there's a non-zero chance you're gonna choke to death on your own smell in the next couple days anyway.
So tight.
I've dated Puerto Ricans and whites.
You never dated a black guy before? Would you be open to doing that?
I don't know. I'm kind of
A little
scared.
scared? You're scared?
A little bit.
You're worried that might be a little big?
No, I'm worried they might cheat on me.
I did not expect that.
Black men don't cheat.
That's what I've heard.
But you think like you may get cheated on?
This is a smart girl. Good job, but you shouldn't be dating Puerto Ricans. You should do white guys only. You're a pretty white girl, you can get a white guy, okay? White guys only. That, goodness gracious.
Once again, not anything even remotely approaching a debunk, almost like this dude's entire shtick is a moronic lie, but this also exposes the incoherence of this belief system, not only because the current far-right white president, elected in part by people who follow Hayden, has cheated on every wife he's ever had, but also because it exposes the deep sexual insecurity at the heart of this, what I'll charitably call ideology. If you sincerely believed that white men were some kind of superior to men of color, you wouldn't need to keep declaring it. To the anti-Semite, white people are obviously the best kind of people, while also being so incapable of displaying their bestness that they need thousands of hours of propaganda hyping them up. Insecurity can be handled in a variety of different ways. One can choose to recognize their genuine flaws and improve on them, realize that some of their insecurity is unwarranted and they're actually capable of a lot more than they give themselves credit for, or they can double down, feed themselves a diet that encourages them to become worse, crueler, less intelligent, thereby reinforcing the initial insecurity and eventually ending up whining that an unnamed Puerto Rican guy had a girlfriend one time. And look, this guy's entire page is full of videos like this. These aren't like cherry-picked examples. Everything of his that I have watched is exactly like this. So there's really not much point in showing you anymore. Either he knows nothing he's making is intelligent and his bio is just a lie, which is a humiliating way to live your life, or this is sincerely his best work, in which case I think he should probably consider binding himself in bubble wrap for when he inevitably ties his shoes together and falls down the stairs. What I'd now like to turn your attention to are a couple of interesting things about this guy's output that I think are revealing in a different, more depressing way. First, his LinkedIn page, where the high-value savior of the white race demonstrates he isn't even fluent in the language of his ancestors, which, to be clear, you don't need to use perfect grammar to be valid under any real circumstances. Extreme obsession with following prescribed grammatical rules is one potential symptom of various subconscious biases and can contribute to white supremacy. But that's also exactly why it's hilarious and pathetic that white supremacists can't even proofread their own business profiles. More important than a grammatical error that otherwise would not matter, Hayden likes to sell you things. He would love for you to give him money whenever possible, specifically in exchange for t-shirts and various other clothing items. For instance, shirts that bemoan the fact that women are repulsed by people like Hayden, shirts that beg women to sleep with people like Hayden, and shirts depicting various fascist heroes using, you guessed it, AI-generated Studio Ghibli characters, because nothing says white supremacy like stealing from other cultures. And I want this to stick in your mind. This is what success looks like when you go down this road. You lose the ability to create anything of value, and your life becomes consumed by repackaging other people's art because you cannot make it yourself. You begin selling Hollywood on Fire t-shirts where Hollywood is misspelled because you don't have the skill or work ethic to spend half an hour learning Photoshop to make it yourself. You just typed Hollywood on Fire into an image generator and then didn't even bother regenerating the misspelled image. Hell, this isn't even the first time he screwed up the Hollywood sign specifically. Just look at that letter spacing. Fascism is evil. It is a system consumed by hatred, cruelty, and insecurity, inflicting unimaginable harm on those that it targets. Right now, the US government is careening towards this possibility, unleashing the military to ensure civilian compliance and making violent threats against the very concept of protest. This video is not intended to convey the idea that the primary victims of fascism are its purveyors. They are not the people who are hurt the most by any stretch of the imagination. But they are the first. I doubt there's any real hope for Hayden or anyone in his particular position. The best way to handle their ideology is to crush it into powder where it stands. But there are people teetering on this edge. People who are angry, insecure, and hearing lots of different messages from lots of different people. And the way that I see it, warning them about what this path will lead them to can really only benefit everyone. Thank you for watching. Use your thumb to convey that you like me and would like to follow me further.